Manx Radio's update with Lewis Foster.
Fastamai and welcome along to Update on Manx Radio. It's 5 o'clock on Wednesday the 30th of April and it's time for half an hour of the latest news on and from the Isle of Man. Coming up, the island's power network is resilient. That's from Manx Utilities, as major outages in Spain and Portugal are linked to a European grid fault. A campaign group is calling for wind farm plans to be halted, warning the project could harm a key bird conservation area. And what does the future hold for Manx Loaghtan sheep? All that and more coming up, plus the latest weather and sport for you, as well as what to watch out for on the roads this evening. Let us know your thoughts. Text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. We'll start as always with the latest headlines with Siobhan Fletcher. Fastamai, Siobhan.
Fastamai. A section of the mountain road will close again tomorrow as clean-up continues on the key route. The road was shut this morning between the Cregnabar and the Bungalow to allow Department of Infrastructure workers to plane off material spilled by a private contractor. In a statement, the department confirmed those efforts were unsuccessful, and as a result, the southern section will close again from 6 p.m. tomorrow evening and will remain closed overnight until no later than 6 p.m. on Friday. Police are appealing for help identifying a woman after a jewellery box was taken from the Henry Bloom Noble Library in Douglas. Officers say she entered on the 11th of February, picked up the box, which contained a necklace meant as a staff gift, and left. Images of the woman have been released, and anyone with any information is urged to contact police headquarters or Crime Stoppers. Manx Utilities says the island's power network is resilient despite major outages in Spain and Portugal linked to a European grid fault. Executive Director Adrian Dobbins says cyber threats are a risk, but the island's grid systems are kept isolated from the internet.
We're always doing cyber training. We're always maintaining the message to people about what to do, how to deal with malware and not to open spurious emails, all of those sorts of things. Really important in a power system.
The Isle of Man Fire and Rescue Service has paid tribute to former Chief Fire Officer Godfrey Kane following his death. The service says Mr Kane's influence remains evident to this day, particularly through advancements in vehicle design, equipment and technology introduced during his tenure. Officers say their thoughts are with Mr Kane's family and he'll be greatly missed. The Post Office has defended its staff policy during January's red weather warning, saying it followed government guidelines. MHK Jason Morehouse raised fairness concerns, but Chair Stu Peters says flexibility is vital and the concerns are unfounded. Further afield, a prolific child sex offender has been jailed for 46 years for abusing boys in his care across several counties. Richard Burrows, an 81-year-old former housemaster and scout leader, went on the run for 27 years. Phone footage showing the moment the famous Sycamore Gap tree crashed into the ground to the sound of a chainsaw has been played to jurors, and officials in Ukraine say a minerals deal with the US could be signed within 24 hours. They're your headlines. I'll have your news at 6.
Grow my head. Thank you, Siobhan. Let's turn our attention to the weather now from the Ronaldsway Met Office, brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. We thought there might have been some records broken today for the top April temperature on record, which currently stands at 20.1 degrees, but I understand we haven't quite got there in the end. That said, a lovely day all around. Dry this evening and overnight with a light, mainly easterly wind. Temperatures around 20 degrees at first, dropping to 10 overnight. Dry and often sunny again tomorrow, but there is a risk of some low cloud in the west of the island. The light and variable wind will settle to the northwest in the afternoon and freshen for a time later in the day. Best temperature of 18 degrees. Settled weather continuing through Friday and the weekend, although cooler than of late. We won't complain too much. Sunset tonight at 8:48 and sunrise tomorrow morning at 5:42.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshaw Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode Estate, view philshawvehicles.im or call 49 50 £21.49.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Beldorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company, Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
SMS Trading have moved to 3 St Paul's Square, Ramsey. For flat pack to fully built, new or second-hand furniture, SMS Trading offer all-island delivery and man-in-a-van service. Call 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
At Begode Cattery, we have been caring for animals for over 50 years. As a cattery, we care for customers' cats and treat them as our own. Contact Begode Cattery on 676 947 or find Begode Cattery on Facebook.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And it's now 5:05. Manx Utilities says there's no need to worry about the island's power supply despite big outages in Spain and Portugal. It says the island's setup using both Pulrose Power Station and the UK interconnector keeps things resilient. A fault in the European grid is believed to have caused the problems, not a cyber attack, although the risk is real. Executive Director Adrian Dobbins and Plant Engineering Manager Mike Newby have been explaining to Phil Gaughan.
These grids are designed to be stable and have got lots of protection built into them for what the engineers feel is credible events. And if something which is very uncommon occurs, they may not have been able to engineer that into the system.
One of the bits of speculation, of course, is that this is some kind of cyber attack from Russia or China or whichever of the many states that people might be thinking about. What reassurance can you give us about the Manx network?
You know, you have to take into account that that's a possibility. I would say on the Manx grid, that's hopefully a very low possibility. We keep our SCADA systems, the systems that control our grid, very separate from anything that even approaches the internet. So cyber security is really important. We drill that into our staff. We've got all the systems in place to maintain cyber security. So hopefully the probability of such, a malicious attack like that is going to have little impact on our grid.
There is always going to be a risk, isn't there, that someone doesn't follow a procedure or something happens.
You're absolutely right, which is why we're always doing cyber training. We're always maintaining the message to people about what to do, how to deal with malware and not to open spurious emails, all of those sorts of things.
That's Manx Utilities Executive Director Adrian Dobbins and Plant Engineering Manager Mike Newby speaking to Phil Gaughan there. Now, a pressure group campaigning against plans for a wind farm in the south of the island is calling for all work on the Caervai project to be halted immediately. Caervai Resistance says the scheme should be paused and the projected energy output reassessed. It follows a French court ruling where EDF Renewables, the company behind the project, was fined €500,000 after 160 protected birds and bats were killed at a wind farm in O'Mallus. Spokesperson Kiri Jenkins has been speaking to Simon Richardson.
What the French court has ruled is that industrial wind farms are killing rare birds in France. So why would we risk the same disaster here on the Isle of Man?
Now, what assurances have you been given?
We've not been given any assurances. We've not seen any of the findings from the environmental impact assessments. There is a lot of use of the word mitigation, and the mitigation is often used is switching the power off. So what's happened in France, the ruling has been that they've been told to switch the turbines off for several months each year. And of course, that will alter the projected power output.
Caervai, you say, could be a disaster for biodiversity. Now, that's a strong statement. What do you believe could be the effect on that particular region?
Well, the south of the Isle of Man lies on key migratory routes for many birds. It's of global significance for hen harrier and chough. But in addition, we have kestrel, merlin, buzzards, curlew, skylark, barn owls, long-eared owls, you name it, all Schedule 1 birds, all who frequent the area. So we believe that building a wind farm here would spell disaster for biodiversity.
Are you against wind farms per se, or is it specifically in respect of this proposal in the south of the island?
As far as we're concerned, it's not green energy if it comes at the cost of vulnerable wildlife. We believe that Manx Utilities are gambling with our wildlife and our energy security. And we believe that building a wind farm on this site is an act of environmental vandalism. We're not against green energy, but we have always maintained it's the wrong project in the wrong place.
What would you like to see happen now in the wake of this report? You've called for an immediate halt. Is that a realistic possibility, do you think?
Well, the world is watching. The Isle of Man must show that we can balance green energy with real environmental protection.
Care-Vi resistant spokesperson Kiri Jenkins there speaking to Simon Richardson. Well, Manx Radio has contacted Manx Utilities for a comment.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
The cost of living has crept up again on the Isle of Man, with the island's latest inflation figures showing prices are still rising in some key areas. To explain what's going on and what it means for your wallet, Christian Jones is with us. First off, for anyone who's not sure, Christian, remind us what exactly is inflation?
Yeah, that is a really good question because it's a term that's often bandied about, but unless you know what it means, then it becomes more tricky to understand what's going on. So inflation is the rate at which prices rise over time. So if inflation is at 2.8%, as it is now, that means on average things cost 2.8% more than they did this time last year. It might not sound like much, but it does add up. So for example, if your weekly food shop used to cost £100, it might now cost £102.80, and that's before any specific price hikes in certain items are accounted for. It's also, let's remember too, that inflation doesn't just affect your shopping basket. It also shapes things like interest rates, wages and benefits too, because with higher inflation, that means your spending power declines.
Okay, so how much has inflation gone up by this month?
The rate now is at 2.8% for March, so that's up slightly from 2.6% in February. The biggest rises over the last year were in restaurants and hotels. Those costs are up by 6.3%. Also in recreation and culture, which also includes things like leisure activities, that's up 5%.
Any specifics that really stand out?
Well, pet care saw the sharpest rise within that category, up by 7.5%. And if you've had to pay for driving lessons, flights or preschool fees recently, they've gone up too by more than 11% on average over the past 12 months.
Okay, so that's everything that's getting progressively more expensive. Is there anything in our basket of goods that isn't rising as fast or getting cheaper?
A few things actually, the headline ones being gas, heating oil and items like sticking plasters are actually down by around 12%. A little bit more narrowed down though over the past month. Transport costs rose the most, up by 1.8%, but food, clothing and communication prices fell slightly.
Christian, thank you. The time now approaching 13 minutes past 5. The Manx Loaghtan sheep is now on a priority watch list, with warnings the native breed is becoming heavily endangered. One farmer who runs the world's biggest Loaghtan flock says the Isle of Man could risk losing them altogether. Amy Griffiths went down to Ballacosnahan Farm on the Patrick Road to speak with Jenny Shepherd of Manx Loaghtan Produce.
People don't realise, but Manx Loaghtan wool is very rare, which makes it very sought after. Our biggest market used to be the USA till Donald Trump mucked it up. But we're lucky the English market's picking up to take over and the European market. But even British wool, they say it's the most valuable wool they've got apart from blue-faced Leicester. So they're paying out £3 a kilo.
What would you normally get for, say, just pence?
20p per kilo for sort of rough hill sheep. So, I mean, it really is valuable wool.
But do you think there's still a bit of almost a stigma attached to Manx Loaghtans and the attitudes towards ways to try and, one, preserve the breed and two, make money from it as well?
We passionately care about Loaghtans, and we decided 10 years ago what we needed to do was show that you can make a good living from just Loaghtans. And we are now making really good living from the wool, everything from skins, blankets, balls of wool. The charcuterie is taken off like we can't make enough to supply the market. There is stigma with a lot of the older farmers who see them just as pets or indulgences, not earning their keep. The reason they went out of favour is because you can't eat a Loaghtan till they're at least 2 years old. They're breeding sheep that are born in the spring and you're eating them by Christmas time.
It's been in the news this week that numbers of Loaghtan are in decline. It's gone onto the red priority list. Is that something you yourself have seen happening, and what can we do about that?
It makes me very sad that the UK have more sheep than we do. They are truly Manx animals, but we're going to lose them here unless there's a change in attitude and more people start keeping them. They do need help.
Jenny Shepherd there of Manx Loaghtan Produce.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, we'll start on the roads. In Greeba, temporary lights on the main road near Greeba Castle for work on a wall that was damaged by a fallen tree earlier this year. At Santon, temporary lights on the Newcastle Town Road around the Mount Murray area for resurfacing. In Douglas, Market Street will be closed each night this week up to and including Friday from 8 p.m. until 2 in the morning from the back of M&S to Victoria Street for fibre installation works. During the time of the closure, traffic can travel in both directions on the stretch of Market Street that remains open. Now, a section of the mountain road will close again tomorrow as cleanup continues on the key route. The road shut this morning between the Cregnabar and Bungalow to allow the Department of Infrastructure workers to plane off hardened material spilled by a private contractor. In a statement, the department confirmed those efforts were unsuccessful, and as a result, the southern section will close from 6 o'clock tomorrow evening and remain closed overnight until no later than 6 o'clock on Friday evening for this work to be undertaken. If you're travelling on or off island tonight, blue skies once again over the airport, so no concern over tonight's flight schedule. Manannan will be arriving in Liverpool in around 15 minutes' time. And it's a Ben McCree in for the Manxman on the Heysham route again today. She departed Heysham just before 3 o'clock this afternoon and will be back in Douglas tonight at 7 o'clock.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with Quayside. You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And from boats to bikes now, as young people across the Isle of Man are being invited to take part in an exciting project celebrating the career of Manx cycling legend Sir Mark Cavendish. The Sir Mark Cavendish Raceway project, which has the full backing of the Tour de France star, aims to inspire the next generation to follow their passion. This week, school children will write their names to make up part of a large mural on the new name for the rebranded raceway when it's officially launched this June. Education, Sport and Culture Minister Daphne Kane tells us more.
To celebrate and commemorate the fact that the greatest of all time sprint cyclist, Sir Mark Cavendish, is Manx-born, homegrown, home-raised, and who started his cycling career aged 10 at the National Sports Centre. The commemoration the department is putting in place is to have a raceway, the Sir Mark Cavendish Raceway, celebrating those achievements. But given Sir Mark Cavendish is really rooted in his Manx background and home, and he's all about inspiring the next generation as he was inspired. So this is an opportunity, an invitation to all children on the Isle of Man who wish to design, get your colours out, your paints, your pens, and put your name as part of the track to be part of the Sir Mark Cavendish Raceway. And we're hoping that in the next week we'll get perhaps 1,000 or so back, and then the designers can get together and make sure that the current generation of children can be part of the celebration and the commemoration of the great career of Sir Mark Cavendish by being part of the installation that will be put in the National Sports Centre.
Education Minister Daphne Kane there. Now, the time is 19 minutes past 5, and the Isle of Man Fire and Rescue Service has paid tribute to former Chief Fire Officer Godfrey Kane following his death. Beth Espy reports.
Mr Kane's career began with Oldham County Borough Fire Brigade in 1968, before returning home to join what was then the Isle of Man Fire Service. In 1973, at just 30 years old, he was in the second fire engine to arrive on the scene of the Summerland disaster. In 2023, 50 years later, he, alongside other emergency responders, received formal recognition for their efforts. At that time, Mr. Kane sat down with Manx Radio to recount that night.
By the time we stopped outside, the whole side wall, top of the gable wall, on top of the baths was lit. Mate of mine, Arthur Collett, and I took some equipment up to the balcony, up the staircase, dropped a rope over, pulled the liner hose up, we went in through the front door. And the noise inside was horrendous. It was like the noise of a steam train going through a station flat out. And the amount of updraft was tremendous. You could feel the fire feeding on the air, pulling it in. And we moved our way across the Summerland floor in line with the wall to the baths. And it was a damn great bang. Lifted us off the ground, dropped us on our heads, we ran like hell for the door. And we went back in, got the hose. We killed the fire on the wall side to the baths, then we went along the front wall going in, and that's when we saw the first couple of bodies. I remember the night of the fire clearly. The days that followed on, they're just a blur. In the years that followed that, we all suffered with PTSD in one form or other, although we didn't know what it was. They've got a name for it now, it wasn't then. I didn't talk about it outside the fire service for about 12, 15 years.
In 1993, Mr. Kane became Chief Fire Officer, a role he stayed in until his retirement in 2000. The Fire and Rescue Service says Godfrey's influence remains evident to this day, particularly through advancements in vehicle design, equipment and technology introduced during his tenure. Even in retirement, they say, Godfrey remained a passionate supporter of the Fire and Rescue Service, maintaining a keen interest in developments across the UK fire sector and staying closely connected with colleagues and the profession that he cared so deeply about. On behalf of the Fire and Rescue Service family, past and present, rest in peace, Chief.
Beth Espy with that report there. The time now 22 minutes past 5. You're listening to Update on Manx Radio. And in less than a week's time, a whole host of island road racers will be taking on the Northwest 200 in Northern Ireland. One of those is Manxman Jamie Kringle, who says ahead of his debut at the meeting, final preparations are in full flow.
A lot of work to get through before we go to start off with. I haven't sorted anything on my side, but I'm lucky enough. I'm riding for Parker Transport. I'm just going there on a 600, so I'm only doing the Supersport category. So lucky enough, them boys have got the bike and all that prep. So basically, I just need to bring myself and all my gear and stuff like that. So that takes a lot of pressure off from my side of things. Yeah.
And in terms of how long you've got to sort of acquaint yourself with the machine once you get there, how does that side of it all work?
So last time I rode for Jerry last TT. So the last time I actually sat on the bike was Bray Hill. I think the newcomers they go out first on the Wednesday. I think they're first out for a practice session, and then I don't even know how many practice sessions or races I have. I'm just turning up.
And how are you feeling about it all? Has this again been something that's been on the radar for a little while?
Yeah, I've wanted to go Northwest and see if I like it or not. I just haven't had the chance to be able to go, basically. Obviously, I'm fortunate enough to have a chance this year, see if I like it. Just going with one bike, not to complicate everything, just go there, learn and just see how we get on.
Now, when we talk to people on this podcast about them preparing for the mountain course, I very often talk about watching a lot of onboard laps and whatever. How do you prepare for a new race circuit?
Pretty much the same, to be honest. I went over in February, a 2-day course as such, and then basically it's just the case of driving around, watching onboards, and then the rest is up to you basically when you get on the bike.
That's Manx road racer Jamie Kringle there speaking with Beth Espy. You'll be able to hear the full extended interview with Jamie on Manx Radio's Journey to a Dream podcast very soon.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And we're joined by Manx Radio's sports editor Rob Pritchard. Fast am I, Rob?
Fast am I, Lewis. First tonight, football and Douglas High School Old Boys have secured a return to the Canada Life Men's Premier League after a dramatic late 2-1 victory over promotion rivals Ramsey Youth Centre and Old Boys last night. A 96-minute strike from Jacob Stones won it for Old Boys after an 86-minute free kick from Leighton Ballard had cancelled out Martin King's opener for the hosts. Success for Douglas High School Old Boys means they'll head back to the Canada Life Men's Premier League after a 2-season absence following relegation in 2022-23. Elsewhere last night, Premier League champions Peel guaranteed their place in the last four of this year's Manx Quality Sheds Hospital Cup with a 2-1 win over Ayr United in a rearranged quarter-final showdown. The Northerners took the lead early in the second half through Jamie Collister before a Thomas Brown penalty and Daniel Bell strike sent the Westerners into the semi-finals. Ayr United actually finished the game with 9 men after both Matthew Skillicorn and Sean Kelly were sent off for second bookable offences. Well, the midweek football action on Ireland continues tonight with 3 games across the combination divisions, all kicking off at 6:30pm. Elsewhere, 10 players have been selected to represent the Isle of Man in badminton at the 2025 Ireland Games. Isle of Man Badminton Association has confirmed 5 male and 5 female competitors have been chosen to take on the respective classes in Orkney in July. 6 of the athletes represented the island at the last Games in Guernsey in 2023. Medal winners Kim Clegg, Jessica Lee and Matthew Nicholson, as well as Alex Buck, Philippa Lee and Stephen Quayle. Well, coming in to strengthen the Isle of Man's bid this year are Tommy Cheng, Bailey Watterson, Annalise Meller and Charlotte Watson. During the 2023 event, the Isle of Man claimed 3 medals in badminton. And finally tonight in motorsport, could we be getting closer to hearing more about James Hillier's plans for this year's TT? Well, following the withdrawal of WTF We're the Future Racing earlier this month, we've wondered what the rider from Ringwood might be able to sort out for the 1000cc classes on the Snaefell Mountain course, if anything. He's already secured a ride in the Supersport class for Bournemouth Kawasaki. Well, in a short statement on social media, Hillier has posted, "Big Bike TT news coming soon."
Rob Pritchard, Guramayed. We'll keep an eye out for that news. That's it for Update Tonight. Up next, it's Wednesday, so that means Howard Kane is back with Spotlight, and Chris Kinley is here at 6 o'clock with Greatest Hits. Remember, you can listen back to tonight's programme as a podcast, available shortly over at manxradio.com. Have a good evening, enjoy the weather. Update will be back at the same time tomorrow.